There are some people you don't forget, no matter how hard you try or how much time passes. Something about them stays with you, like a story that was never finished. You move on, you stay busy, but in quiet moments their presence returns, and you keep asking yourself why Allah brought them into your life only to take them away. And that question stays with you, because it did not feel wrong, it felt real, just incomplete. Listen carefully, because sometimes Allah does not remove someone to end your story. He removes them to prepare something you are not ready for yet. Before we go deeper, pause for a second and tell me honestly, where are you watching this from right now, and what time is it in your city or your country? Because maybe this message is reaching you exactly when it was meant to. Not every separation is a loss. You called it a loss because that is what it felt like in the moment. It felt like something was taken from you without warning, without explanation, without mercy. One day they were part of your routine, part of your thoughts, part of your emotional world, and the next day there was a silence you could not fill no matter how hard you tried. And naturally, your heart labeled that silence as loss, because that is how humans understand sudden absence. But what if that definition is incomplete? What if what you experienced was not a loss in the way you think, but a shift that your heart was not ready to understand yet? Because not every separation is meant to break you, and not every goodbye is meant to end something permanently. Some separations are designed to interrupt a path that was moving too fast in the wrong direction, even if it felt right emotionally. You were attached, and attachment can feel like certainty. When someone becomes part of your daily thoughts, your plans, your hopes, your emotional comfort, you begin to believe that their presence means they are meant to stay. But attachment does not always mean alignment, and feelings do not always mean readiness. Sometimes you are connected to someone at a level that feels deep, but beneath that connection, there are things that are not stable yet, things that are not mature yet, things that are not built on the right foundation. And Allah, in His wisdom, sees beyond the emotions you are feeling in the present moment. He sees where that connection would lead if it continued the same way. He sees the cracks that you are ignoring, the weaknesses that you are not aware of, the imbalance that you are slowly accepting as normal. And if that connection was allowed to continue without correction, it would not give you peace, it would slowly take it away from you. So instead of allowing you to reach a deeper level of attachment and then experience a much more painful break later, Allah interrupts the story early. He creates a distance that you did not choose, a silence that you did not expect, a separation that you did not understand. And in that moment, it feels unfair, because you are only seeing what you lost, not what you were being protected from. This is the part most people never realize. They focus on the person who left, but they do not think about the version of themselves that was being shaped in that connection. Maybe you were giving too much of yourself without realizing it. Maybe you were ignoring your own boundaries just to keep things working. Maybe you were slowly losing your focus on your purpose, your growth, your relationship with Allah, because your emotional energy was centered around that person. And if that continued, you would not notice the damage immediately. It would happen slowly, quietly, until one day you would wake up and realize that you are not the same person you used to be, and not in a good way. That is why sometimes the most painful separations are actually the most necessary ones, because they stop a process that would have hurt you more in the long run. So when you look back at that moment, when they were removed from your life, do not only see the pain you felt, try to understand the protection that was hidden inside that pain. Try to see that Allah was not rejecting you, and He was not denying you something good. He was preventing something incomplete from becoming permanent before it was ready. Because what is truly written for you does not need to be forced, and what is truly good for you will not require you to lose yourself in order to keep it. Sometimes Allah takes someone away, not because they are wrong for you, but because the situation, the timing, or even your own state is not ready for something that is meant to last. And that is why this lesson is important. Not every separation is a sign that something ended. Sometimes it is a sign that something was paused, corrected, and redirected in a way that you cannot fully understand yet. Allah is preparing what you cannot see. After they left, your focus stayed on the absence. You kept thinking about what was missing, what changed, what you could have done differently, and why it all slipped away so suddenly. Your mind tried to search for answers in the past, replaying every moment again and again, hoping that somewhere in those memories you would find a reason that makes sense. But the truth is, what Allah is doing in your life is not always connected to what you can see behind you. It is often connected to what is being prepared ahead of you. Because when Allah removes someone temporarily, He is not only working on you, He is also working on things you have no access to. He is shaping circumstances, correcting paths, aligning outcomes, and sometimes even changing the hearts of people in ways you cannot witness. While you are sitting in confusion, thinking that everything has stopped, Allah is continuing the story in a place your eyes cannot reach. This is where most people misunderstand their situation. They think that nothing is happening because they cannot see progress. They assume that silence means the end, that distance means closure, that delay means rejection. But in reality, some of the most important changes happen in silence. Some of the most powerful preparations happen when there is no visible movement at all. Think about this carefully. If something is meant to stay in your life permanently, it cannot remain in a weak or unstable form. It has to be strengthened, refined, and corrected before it becomes part of your future. And sometimes that process requires distance. Sometimes it requires both people to be separated so that growth can happen individually before anything can be sustained together. Maybe there were things inside you that needed to change, habits that needed to break, intentions that needed to become pure. Maybe you were relying too much on that person for emotional stability instead of strengthening your connection with Allah. Maybe your sense of peace was coming from them instead of coming from within. And if that continued, even if you ended up together, the relationship would carry that imbalance, and sooner or later, it would collapse under its own weight. So Allah creates space, not to punish you, but to rebuild you in a way that can handle something permanent. He takes you through a period where you feel alone, so that you learn how to stand without leaning on anyone else. He lets you experience uncertainty, so that you develop trust in Him instead of relying on outcomes. He removes distractions so that you can reconnect with yourself, your purpose, and your faith. At the same time, there is another side of this that you rarely think about. The person who was removed from your life is also under Allah's control. Just like you are being shaped, they are being shaped too. Their mindset, their maturity, their understanding, their readiness, all of it is being worked on in ways you cannot measure. And if they are truly meant to be part of your future, they cannot return as the same person who left. They have to return changed, aligned, and ready in a way that supports something lasting. But here is the deeper part that requires real patience. You are not given a timeline. You are not told how long this preparation will take, or what exactly is being fixed behind the scenes. And that is what makes it difficult, because your heart wants clarity, it wants certainty, it wants to know whether to wait or to let go. But Allah does not always give you those answers immediately, because part of your growth depends on how you handle that uncertainty. Do you rush to replace what was removed just to fill the emptiness, or do you stay patient and allow Allah to complete what He started? Do you keep questioning His plan, or do you begin to trust that what is happening, even if it hurts, is not random and not without purpose? Because the reality is this: if Allah is preparing something for you, it will come at the right time, in the right form, with the right conditions. And when it finally reaches you, it will not carry the confusion, the instability, or the emotional chaos that you felt before. It will come with clarity, with peace, with a sense of alignment that does not require constant questioning. So instead of focusing only on what was taken from you, try to understand what is being built for you. Because what you see as delay might actually be protection, and what you feel as absence might actually be preparation for something that is meant to stay in your life in a way that does not break, does not confuse, and does not disappear again. And that is why this lesson goes deeper than the first, because it is not just about understanding that the separation was not a loss. It is about realizing that even now, in this moment of silence, Allah is actively preparing something that your current version is not ready to receive yet. Allah knows what you don't know. There comes a point in this journey where your questions become heavier than your patience. You have already accepted that the separation was not random. You have started to understand that something is being prepared behind the scenes, but still, there is a part of your heart that struggles. It keeps asking the same quiet question again and again. Why did it have to happen this way? And why did it have to hurt this much? Because if something is truly good for you, why would Allah make you feel this kind of emptiness? Why would He allow your heart to attach, to feel deeply, to hope sincerely, and then take that person away without giving you clear answers? It feels confusing, and sometimes it even feels unfair, because you are judging the situation based on what you can see and what you can feel in the present moment. But this is exactly where your understanding reaches its limit. Because your vision is limited to moments, while Allah's knowledge covers the entire path of your life. You see what is in front of you, but Allah sees what is ahead of you, what is hidden from you, and what would have happened if things continued the way you wanted them to. And this is not just an idea, this is something Allah Himself reminds us of in the Quran. And perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you, and perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you. And Allah knows while you do not know. This is not just a verse to read, it is a truth that directly applies to moments like this. Because right now, your heart is holding on to something it believes was good, something it felt was right, something it is still not ready to release. But at the same time, Allah, with His complete knowledge, may have seen something in that connection that would have harmed you in ways you cannot imagine yet. Maybe it would have led you away from your purpose. Maybe it would have slowly damaged your peace. Maybe it would have brought pain into your life at a stage where you were not strong enough to handle it. And because you cannot see those outcomes, you are judging the situation based on your feelings, not on the full reality. This is why trusting Allah is not just about believing when things make sense. It is about trusting even when everything feels unclear, even when your heart is struggling to accept what has happened. Because real trust begins where your understanding ends. You have to realize something deeper here. Allah is not removing things from your life without reason. Every removal is connected to a wisdom that is beyond your current awareness. Every delay is connected to a timing that is more accurate than your desires. And every pain you feel is not empty. It is shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing you in ways you will only understand later. And sometimes, the reason you cannot move on easily is because this experience itself is part of your growth. It is teaching you patience in a way comfort never could. It is teaching you reliance on Allah in a way stability never would. It is forcing you to look beyond people and reconnect with the one who controls every heart and every outcome. But there is another side to this that most people overlook. Just because something feels right does not mean it is right in its current form. Sometimes the connection is real, but the timing is wrong. Sometimes the feeling is genuine, but the situation is not stable. And sometimes both people need to go through separate journeys before anything can come together in a way that actually lasts. So Allah creates a distance that feels painful, but that distance is not empty. It is filled with unseen changes. It is filled with quiet corrections. It is filled with preparation that is happening without your awareness. And one day, when things become clear, you will look back at this moment differently. You will not see it as something that was taken from you. You will see it as something that was redirected for you. You will understand that what you were holding on to was only a part of the story, not the full picture. Because what Allah knows includes outcomes you cannot predict, consequences you cannot imagine, and paths you cannot see. And that is why, even when your heart feels uncertain, you hold on to this truth, that Allah's knowledge is complete and yours is limited. And if He removed something from your life, even something that felt deeply right, then there is a reason that goes far beyond what your emotions are telling you right now. Allah does not return things the same way. By now, you have started to understand that the separation was not random, that something is being prepared, and that Allah's knowledge is beyond what you can see. But there is still one question that quietly remains inside your heart, and it is a question many people are afraid to admit, even to themselves. Will they come back? Because no matter how strong you try to be, no matter how much you try to focus on your growth, there is still a part of you that wonders if this story is truly over or if it is only paused. You think about what it would feel like if they returned, if things somehow aligned again, if everything that was broken could be fixed and rewritten in a better way. But this is where you need to understand something very important, something that changes the way you look at both the past and the future. If Allah ever returns someone to your life, He does not return them the same way, because the version of that connection that existed before was not strong enough to last. It had confusion, it had imbalance, it had things that were not ready yet. And if Allah simply brought it back exactly as it was, it would lead to the same outcome again, the same pain, the same ending, just repeated in a different form. And Allah does not repeat what breaks you. He transforms it first. So if something is truly written to return, it will come back differently. The people involved will not be the same emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. The understanding will be deeper, the intentions will be clearer, and the connection will no longer be based only on feelings, but on stability, respect, and alignment. The conversations will feel different. The confusion will not be there in the same way. The fear of losing each other will not control everything. Instead, there will be a sense of calm that was missing before, a sense of certainty that does not need constant reassurance, a sense of peace that makes you feel safe instead of anxious. Because when Allah reconnects something, He removes what was weak and strengthens what was real. But here is the deeper truth that you must accept, even if it is difficult. Not everything that leaves your life is meant to return. And this is where many people struggle, because they hold on to the idea of reunion so tightly that they forget the bigger picture. They forget that Allah's plan is not centered around one person. It is centered around what is best for your life as a whole. So there are two possibilities, and both of them are good. Even if they do not feel equal in your heart right now, either Allah will return that person to you, but in a way that is stronger, clearer, and finally ready to last. Or Allah will not return them, and instead, He will replace them with someone who brings you a level of peace, stability, and understanding that you never experienced before. And the reason this second option exists is because sometimes what you thought was right was only a part of what is truly written for you. Sometimes your heart chooses based on what it feels, while Allah chooses based on what will actually sustain you. So the goal is not to hold on to a specific outcome. The goal is to trust that whatever Allah decides, whether it is return or replacement, will come in a form that is better than what you had before. Because what comes from Allah does not come with confusion. It does not leave you constantly questioning your place in someone's life. It does not make you feel uncertain about where you stand. When something is right in the way Allah intends it to be, it brings clarity, not chaos. It brings peace, not anxiety. It brings stability, not emotional exhaustion. And this is how you begin to understand your situation in a deeper way. You stop focusing only on the person who left, and you start focusing on what Allah is shaping for you. You stop asking when they will come back, and you start asking what kind of future Allah is preparing for you, with or without them. Because the truth is, if they are meant to be part of your life, you will not need to chase them, force them, or hold everything together by yourself. Allah will bring them back in a way that does not break you again. And if they are not meant to return, Allah will give you something that makes you realize why they were removed in the first place. Something that feels complete. Something that feels right. Something that stays. And that is when you finally understand that what Allah does is not just about taking or giving. It is about transforming your life in a way that you could never plan on your own. Because when Allah writes your story, He does not repeat your pain. He replaces it with something better. Allah removes what you would never let go of. There is a truth that is very difficult to accept, especially when your heart is deeply attached to someone. And that truth is this: sometimes Allah removes a person from your life because you would have never had the strength to let go on your own. You would have stayed, not because everything was right, but because your feelings were strong enough to make you ignore what was wrong. You would have kept finding reasons to continue, kept justifying what did not feel completely stable, kept holding on to moments that gave you temporary happiness, while quietly accepting patterns that were slowly draining you. And this is the nature of attachment. It does not always allow you to see clearly. It convinces you that something is necessary even when it is not healthy in its current form. It makes you believe that losing that person would break you, that your peace depends on their presence, that your future is connected to them in a way that cannot be replaced. But Allah sees beyond that emotional attachment. He sees what you are becoming in that situation. He sees the compromises you are making, the parts of yourself you are neglecting, the imbalance you are accepting just to keep the connection alive. And He knows that if it continues, you will not realize the damage immediately, but over time, it will change you in ways you never intended. So He does something that feels painful, something that feels sudden, something that feels like it came without warning. He removes them, not because you were weak, but because you were too emotionally invested to make that decision yourself. Not because you were wrong to care, but because your care was leading you into something that was not fully right for you in that moment. And this is where the pain becomes deeper, because it feels like something was taken from you without your consent. You did not choose the ending, you did not agree to the distance, you did not feel ready for it. It feels like control was taken away from you, and that is what makes it harder to accept. But look at it from a different angle. If you had stayed in that situation longer, would you have been able to walk away later when it became even more complicated? Would you have had the strength to leave when your attachment was deeper, when your expectations were higher, when your emotional dependence had grown stronger? Most likely, you would not. And that is why Allah intervenes early sometimes, before the connection becomes so deep that separation becomes even more painful. He removes you from a situation before it reaches a point where it would take much more from you than you are ready to lose. This is not just about protecting your heart from pain. It is about protecting your life from a path that would slowly lead you away from your peace, your stability, and your growth. Because when you are deeply attached, you do not think about long-term consequences. You focus on how the person makes you feel in the present. You focus on the moments, the conversations, the emotional connection. But Allah is not looking at moments. He is looking at outcomes. He is looking at where this path leads, what kind of future it creates, what kind of person you become if you continue walking in that direction. And if that future is not aligned with what is truly best for you, He will change your path, even if it hurts in the moment. There is also something else you begin to realize after some time passes. When that person is no longer part of your daily life, you slowly start seeing things you did not notice before. You recognize patterns you overlooked. You understand behaviors you once ignored. You see the imbalance that you once accepted as normal. And this clarity does not come immediately. It comes gradually, as your emotions settle, as your perspective expands, as you begin to detach from the intensity of what you felt. You start to understand that your attachment was not always based on reality. It was often based on hope, on potential, on what you believed the connection could become, not on what it actually was in that moment. And that is a powerful realization because it shifts your understanding completely. You begin to see that Allah did not remove something perfect from your life. He removed something that felt perfect to your emotions but was not fully aligned with your long-term peace. And this is where your trust begins to grow on a deeper level. You realize that even when you could not make the right decision for yourself, Allah made it for you. Even when your emotions were too strong to let go, Allah created a situation that forced you to step away. And while it felt like loss at first, over time you begin to see it as guidance. Because not every door that closes is a punishment. Some doors close because they would have led you somewhere you were never meant to stay. And if Allah had left that door open, you might have walked through it willingly without realizing where it would eventually take you. So when you look back at that moment of separation, do not only remember the pain of losing someone, remember the protection that was hidden in that loss. Remember that Allah saw what you could not see, understood what you could not understand, and made a decision for your life that you were not ready to make on your own. And that is not something to resent. That is something to be grateful for, even if it took time for your heart to accept it. What Allah delays is never empty. It is full of purpose. There is a stage in this journey where the pain of separation slowly transforms into something else. It is no longer just about missing that person, and it is no longer just about questioning what happened. It becomes something deeper, something quieter, something that sits in your heart and forces you to think in a way you never did before. You begin to notice the delay. Not just the delay of that person returning, but the delay of clarity, the delay of answers, the delay of resolution. And this delay can feel heavier than the separation itself, because when something ends, at least your mind tries to accept it. But when something is delayed without explanation, your heart stays in between, not fully holding on, not fully letting go. And that space in between is where the real test begins. Because in that space, you are left with nothing but your thoughts and your trust. You are left without control, without certainty, without a clear direction of what will happen next. And this is where most people struggle the most, because the human heart wants closure, it wants answers, it wants something to hold on to so it can feel stable again. But Allah does not always give you closure in the way you expect. Sometimes He gives you distance instead. Sometimes He gives you silence. Sometimes He gives you time. And time, when it feels empty, can feel like punishment. But in reality, that time is not empty at all. It is one of the most meaningful parts of your journey, even if it does not feel like it, because what Allah delays is never meaningless. There are things happening within you that could not happen if everything stayed the same. There are changes taking place in your mindset, in your emotional strength, in your understanding of life, in your relationship with Allah Himself. You begin to sit with your thoughts more. You begin to question your patterns more. You begin to understand your emotions instead of just reacting to them. And slowly, without even realizing it, you are becoming someone different. You are becoming more aware. more patient, more grounded. But this transformation is not always comfortable. There are nights when the silence feels too loud. There are moments when memories return unexpectedly. There are times when you feel like reaching out, like breaking the distance, like trying to control what Allah has already paused. And in those moments, your patience is tested in a way that no situation of comfort could ever test it. Because patience is not just about waiting, it is about how you behave while you are waiting. Do you rush to fill the emptiness with something temporary, or do you sit with it and allow Allah to complete what He started? Do you try to recreate the past, or do you accept that what is coming must be different from what was? This is where your growth becomes real, because now you are not just understanding things intellectually, you are living them. You are learning what it means to trust without seeing. You are learning what it means to wait without knowing. You are learning what it means to let Allah handle something you cannot control. And that is not easy, because letting go of control is one of the hardest things for the human heart. You want to fix it. You want to understand it. You want to move it forward. But Allah is teaching you something deeper than control. He is teaching you surrender. Not the kind of surrender that comes from weakness, but the kind that comes from understanding that your knowledge is limited and His knowledge is complete. And when you begin to understand this, your perspective starts to shift. You stop seeing the delay as something negative. You start seeing it as something necessary. Because if something is meant to stay in your life permanently, it cannot be rushed into existence. It cannot be built on unstable ground. It cannot come to you while you are still in a state that cannot handle it. Everything that is meant to last must go through a process. And that process often includes waiting. Not because Allah wants to keep you in pain, but because He is preparing something that will not break once it arrives. And here is something even deeper that you begin to realize over time. The person you were when they left is not the same person you are becoming now. Your understanding has changed. Your expectations have changed. Your emotional strength has changed. And because of that, even if that person were to return exactly as they were before, you would not receive them in the same way. You have grown, and that growth is not accidental. It is the result of everything you have gone through during this period of delay. Every moment of confusion, every moment of silence, every moment of questioning, all of it has been shaping you into someone who is more prepared for what is coming next. And that is why this delay matters so much. Because it is not just about waiting for something to happen. It is about becoming someone who can handle what happens when it finally does. There is also a hidden mercy in this delay that most people do not recognize. If Allah gave you everything immediately, without process, without waiting, without growth, you would not appreciate it in the same way. You would not understand its value. You would not be able to sustain it because you would not have developed the depth required to protect it. But when something comes after patience, after confusion, after growth, it feels different. It feels earned. It feels meaningful. It feels stable. Because now, it is not just something you received, it is something you are ready for. And that readiness is what makes the difference between something temporary and something lasting. So when you find yourself in this period of delay, do not rush to escape it. Do not try to force clarity where Allah has chosen silence. Do not try to create answers where Allah has chosen to test your trust. Instead, use this time. Use it to strengthen yourself. Use it to reconnect with Allah. Use it to become someone who does not depend on outcomes to feel stable. Because when your stability comes from Allah, not from people, everything changes. You stop fearing loss the same way. You stop chasing what is not meant for you. You stop holding on to things that are not aligned with your peace. And this is when you reach a level of understanding that most people never reach. You realize that what Allah delays is not being withheld from you. It is being prepared for you. prepared in a way that fits your life, prepared in a way that does not break you, prepared in a way that aligns with who you are becoming. And when it finally comes, whether it is that person returning in a better way or someone new entering your life with a deeper sense of peace, you will understand why it did not happen earlier. You will understand why you had to wait. You will understand why things had to unfold the way they did. Because if it came before you were ready, it would not stay. And Allah does not give you something permanent in a way that is incomplete. He gives it to you when it is right, when you are ready, when the situation is aligned, when everything is in its place. And that is why this delay, as heavy as it feels, is one of the most important parts of your story, because it is not empty, it is full of purpose. And everything that is happening in this moment, even the silence, even the waiting, even the uncertainty, is part of a plan that is being written with a wisdom you will only fully understand later. So do not rush this process. Do not try to control what is already in Allah's control. Trust that what is meant for you is being prepared, not taken away. And trust that when it finally reaches you, it will not come with confusion. It will come with peace. And that peace will make everything you went through worth it. What is written for you will find you, but only in the right version of you. There comes a moment in this journey where everything you have been through begins to connect in a way that finally makes sense. Not all at once, not in a sudden realization, but slowly, quietly, as your heart becomes calmer and your thoughts become clearer. The questions that once felt overwhelming begin to lose their intensity, and the need for constant answers starts to fade. You are not as desperate to understand everything anymore, and that itself is a sign that something inside you has changed. Because at the beginning, your focus was on the person. You were trying to understand them, trying to understand why they left, why things happened the way they did, and whether they would come back. Your thoughts were centered around their actions, their presence, their absence. But now, after everything you have gone through, your focus begins to shift. You start to look at yourself. You start to see how much you have changed since that moment of separation. You start to recognize that the version of you who experienced that connection is not the same version of you who is standing here now. And that realization is powerful because it changes the entire way you understand what happened. Because maybe it was not just about them being removed. Maybe it was also about you being transformed. You were one version of yourself when they entered your life. You had a certain mindset, a certain level of emotional strength, a certain way of understanding relationships, attachment, and even your connection with Allah. And through everything that followed, through the confusion, the distance, the waiting, the reflection, you have been shaped into someone different, someone more aware, someone more patient, someone who understands the difference between attachment and alignment. And this is where you begin to understand one of the deepest truths in this entire journey. What is written for you will find you, but it will only find you in the version of yourself that is ready to receive it. Not the version of you who was emotionally dependent, not the version of you who ignored your own value, not the version of you who was willing to accept confusion just to keep someone in your life, but the version of you who has grown, the version of you who has learned, the version of you who no longer needs someone to feel complete, but is ready to share completeness with someone who is equally aligned. And this changes everything, because now your focus is no longer on chasing a specific person or a specific outcome. Your focus becomes your own growth, your own alignment, your own readiness for whatever Allah has written for you. You begin to understand that what is truly meant for you does not need to be chased, forced, or held together through constant effort. It comes to you in a way that feels natural, in a way that does not disturb your peace, in a way that does not leave you constantly questioning where you stand. And this is where your fear of losing them starts to fade. because you realize that if they are truly written for you, they cannot be taken away permanently. And if they are not written for you, then holding on to them will only delay what is actually meant to come into your life. This is a level of trust that does not come easily. It comes from everything you have gone through. It comes from the nights you spent thinking, from the moments you felt lost, from the times you had to sit with your emotions without any answers. All of that was shaping you into someone who can now understand this truth. And there is something even deeper that you begin to realize as you reach this stage. Sometimes what you thought was the right person was actually a part of your journey, not the final destination. They were there to teach you something, to show you something, to prepare you for something. And once that purpose was fulfilled, Allah moved your life forward. Not because what you had was meaningless, but because it was not meant to be permanent. And this is where acceptance becomes real. Not forced acceptance, not pretending that you do not care, but a genuine understanding that whatever happened was part of a bigger plan that is still unfolding. You no longer feel the need to go back and fix what is already behind you. You no longer feel the need to hold on to something just because it once felt right. You begin to trust that whatever is ahead of you will come in a form that is better suited for who you are becoming. And that trust brings peace, a different kind of peace. Not the peace that comes from having everything you want, but the peace that comes from knowing that whatever you receive will be exactly what you need. And that is when you truly let go. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started trusting. You trust that Allah knows what is best for you. You trust that what is written for you cannot miss you. You trust that if something is meant to return, it will return in a way that is better than before. And if it is not meant to return, then something better will take its place. This is the point where your story stops being about loss and starts becoming about alignment. Because now, everything in your life is moving toward what is actually meant for you, not what you once thought was meant for you. And that is a powerful shift, because it frees you from the need to control outcomes. It frees you from the fear of missing out on something that was never truly yours. It frees you from the emotional weight of trying to hold on to something that Allah has already removed. Instead, you begin to move forward with a sense of quiet confidence. You know that your path is being guided. You know that your life is being shaped with a wisdom that goes beyond your understanding. You know that whatever comes next will come with a clarity and stability that was missing before. And that is when you realize something that changes everything. You were not left empty. You were being prepared. Prepared to receive something that matches who you have become. Prepared to experience a connection that does not confuse you. Prepared to live a reality that does not require you to question your worth. And this preparation was necessary, because without it, even if you received what was meant for you, you would not have been able to recognize it, appreciate it, or protect it. But now you can. Now you are different. Now you are ready. And that is why what is written for you will not just find you anywhere. It will find you when you have reached the version of yourself that can truly hold it. So do not rush your journey. Do not compare your timing to anyone else. Do not feel like you are behind just because things are not happening as quickly as you expected. Because your story is being written with precision, every delay has a purpose. Every separation has a reason. Every moment of growth is leading you towards something that is already written for you. And when it finally arrives, you will not have to question it. You will not have to force it. You will not have to fight to keep it. It will come with a sense of ease, a sense of clarity, a sense of peace that makes you realize that this is what was worth waiting for. And that is when you will look back at everything you went through and understand that nothing was wasted. Not the pain, not the confusion, not the waiting. All of it was part of the process that led you to exactly where you were meant to be. Because what Allah writes for you is never random. It is always intentional. And it always finds you at the right time, in the right way, and in the right version of yourself. So trust the process, trust the delay, trust the changes you are going through, because what is written for you is already on its way. And when it reaches you, it will not just stay for a moment. It will stay in a way that feels right, in a way that feels complete, in a way that makes everything you went through finally make sense. So, if someone was removed from your life, do not rush to call it the end of your story. Because not every goodbye is a conclusion. Some goodbyes are corrections. Some distances are mercy in a form you did not recognize at first. You thought you lost them, but maybe Allah was protecting you, preparing you, and rewriting something you could not see. And one day, everything will make sense. Either they will return in a way that finally feels right, with clarity, with peace, with no confusion, or Allah will replace them with someone who makes you realize why things never worked before. But in both cases, you will understand something powerful. Nothing left your life without a reason. Nothing was taken from you without purpose, and nothing meant for you will ever miss you. So instead of holding on to what was removed, hold on to Allah. Trust His timing, even when it is silent. Trust His plan, even when it is unclear. Trust His decisions, even when they hurt. Because what He is preparing for you is not temporary. It is something that will stay.